Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the One and All Youth Podcast. We have another episode today. The purpose of this podcast is to have community and conversation about real topics. And Jordan, you actually have something that you want us to talk about during this episode. So what are we talking about today?
So now I'm a Laker fan. Not actually, no.
Oh, dude.
Not real. No, your face was so excited. My friend sent me a message after they won the championship last week and was like, hey, like it's you, this is your chance. Like, I will let you in freely. And he's like the
door's open.
Forever, he was from a kid. He's like, the door's open. We can let you in. And I was like, not a chance. Not going to happen. That's not
I didn't know you weren't a Laker fan.
I'm not a Laker fan.
I didn't know that.
He's a Rockets fan for no reason.
I'm a Houston Rockets fan.
For no reason.
Yeah, I'm a Houston Rockets fan. So,
is there really no reason?
I started watching basketball like probably 3 years ago, really, with friends. And growing up in my family, it was like everyone was like a Laker fan, but not really. There's like a few Laker fans. But it was like, if we watch basketball, it's the Lakers. Like, that's who we root for. And so I think I started watching it. I was just like, I don't want to just do that just because. I want to find a team. And when I was in high school, I went to a Clippers game when Chris Paul played for the Clippers with a friend. His dad had season tickets. And we went to the game and Chris Paul was playing. And so I was like, that's cool. And then started watching basketball 3 years ago. CP3 plays for the Rockets. And I was like, well, I'll watch them this game. And then it kind of just stuck. Like, that was who like I wanted to watch after that instead of like anybody else. And I was open to like whoever is playing. I want to like try to watch a game to see who's my team. And they just stuck. And then ever since then, it's been like, I'm doing it. And someone told me once, like, you're a bandwagon fan. And I'm like, bandwagon for what? First round exits? Like, that's what I'm a bandwagon for? Like, for them to lose the first round playoffs? But anyways, NBA championship 2020, LA Lakers, LeBron James, 17th year. Phenomenal.
Yeah. And can I preface this by saying that if you're listening to this right now and you're like, did I just click an ESPN podcast? And I want to say that
you partially did.
You partially did. But also, this applies to anybody. Like, I'm not super into basketball, and I think this conversation is still really important.
Yeah.
So whether you are listening to this and you're like, I don't watch basketball, this episode's still for you.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the principle of the right people around you or the right people in the room. So the Lakers won the championship. LeBron James, obviously, multiple championships, multiple MVPs. Top 2 player for sure. And the conversation is he the GOAT? But there's another guy on the team named Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis is a center.
Got the eyebrows.
Yes. The eyebrow.
Sorry, he has one eyebrow.
And, so Anthony Davis comes into the league in 2012, I think it was. First round pick of the draft. I had a friend who was from Kentucky. AD went to University of Kentucky. And this friend was like, he's going to be the best player. Like, they knew who he was. And they were going to be, he's going to be amazing. And he came into the league, got drafted by the Pelicans, joined the team, and in 7 years with the Pelicans, four-time like all NBA team, which means like you're one of the best 5 players in the league. The first year that he played, he was like all rookie team, 7-time All-Star, like just phenomenal seasons. But in that time, he won 5 playoff games the entire time. Comes to the Lakers, first year with LeBron James, playing alongside him. They win 16 playoff games, obviously, and the championship in 1 year. And it's not as though, like, Anthony Davis, obviously, as you get older, he's like prime right now. It's like he's in his late 20s, like he's more experienced. But the idea is the fact that he came into the league and could not win a playoff series. So winning 5 games means you've never won a series. Like, in total, he's won that across 7 years. And so he comes in and just demolishes the Western Conference and the playoffs, and then the Miami Heat, they just destroyed them. Like, obviously they went to 6 games, but still, like the last game they handled it on game 6. And a lot of that's because of Anthony Davis. And so we're gonna talk about this idea that like, you could be the most talented person in the world, but if you're surrounded by the wrong people, it doesn't get you anywhere. You have to get the right people in the room. And on the flip side of that, the rest of the team are really role players and older players, like Rajon Rondo, Alec Caruso, Kuzma, Danny Green. Like, these are guys that they're not all-stars. Like, they're fine players, but they're not game changers. And so you get them on the team this year, where last year LeBron James actually missed the playoffs. I think it was the first time in like 9 years he missed playoffs. But he had young studs. He had Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram on his team, and it was like they're going to make the playoffs, and he missed it. And so you get a new team, older guys, and Anthony Davis and LeBron, and they demolish like the playoffs. They went 3-1 every series up until the last one. So they basically almost had like a perfect record in the playoffs the entire time. And so I want to talk about today the idea of like, what does it look like to get the right people in the room to elevate you and your ability and your talent and your gifting? Because in my personal experience, Like I've been on teams before where I might have a ability, but it's not highlighted because I'm in the room with the wrong people. And I feel like in this season, it being at One and All, and specifically in this season, we're going to talk about today, the three of us and how we all have very different talents and abilities, but we began to elevate each other's in our gifting because we're so different. But you could get somebody else in the room who cares about groups like Joseph or cares about content like me, and it could not work as well, right? They have the same exact ability and gifting and level, but it could not work as well. And so I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about the dynamic that we've built in the room, and how can we apply that to our lives outside of this, being with the right people?
Right. I think that in this season, especially, those differences that we have, I think what I like about this episode is like, this is kind of like a behind the curtains at like our relationship. You know what I mean? Like we're like on stage, we host together, we take like jabs at our outfits, you know, on stage or whatever.
Well, some of us do.
Some of us do.
Yeah.
One side of the table does.
But I wonder how much people know about like our relationship and like our friendship, like in our working together and us doing ministry together. And that's what I'm really excited to talk about, because I think that's the huge reason why we've been able to get by in this season, and not only get by, but like grow in this season in a lot of ways, is because of all of our unique giftings that we have. And like you said, it's not just because of the skills that we have, it's because of like the community that we've built. I think that's the difference. Is the thing about, to bring it back to AD and LeBron, is, I mean, you could have all these people that have all the right skills, but if they don't value the same things in community, ultimately, like, you guys aren't gonna accomplish the same things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, sorry, bro, I have to comment, a fly just landed on your face.
Where's it at?
Oh gosh.
I had a Mike Pence
I
moment right now.
Mike Pence moment with the fly on the head. Have you seen? You saw that? You sent us that, right? You read us that tweet that was like a youth pastor, and he was like, "What if we landed on God's word?" I think that's pretty fly. But anyways,
Sorry,
I haven't heard that before.
You haven't heard that?
No, I didn't get that.
It's hilarious.
Youth pastors are getting wrecked on social media right now. They are just getting like everyone. They're like the epitome of what you make fun of in the church. I feel like when people bash on the church, it's just like always
like the
these
cliches and
these
stuff.
cheesy cliches. Of
like
a youth
Tommy
pastor.
sent us the thing this morning and was like, "Hey, you guys are being talked about on Twitter." And my first thing was like, "Oh gosh, what happened?"
Yeah, they tagged us.
Who tagged us? And look, and it's just like youth pastors in general. It's like, I've only played Among Us like twice, man.
Right.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
right.
dude.
Oh yeah,
like,
it was like you know who's really among us? Or something like that.
It's like the whole thing. It's like when like you see someone in the morning and you're youth pastor, it's like before 10 a.m. They're like, "You're awake? What are you doing here?"
That one's kind of real though.
It's
fair.
Anyways,
but to get back, so it's the skills that we all bring and stuff, but it's also like the values that we have. So like the AD and LeBron thing, that AD was willing to listen to LeBron. Like he came in willing to, like, he knew he was a great player. He knew the things that people said about him, that like, you're going to be this great, phenomenal player, but he could not get a championship. He couldn't even get close to it.
Yeah.
And so he came in realizing like, this guy can help me. And LeBron in the same way realized like he didn't make it to the playoffs like the year before. And like he needed AD as well. And so they had the same values of like, we're going to grow together. We're going to rely on each other and what we're good at and go forward. And so, so if you guys watching, like, you guys don't know that Joseph is really the reason community groups are what they are right now. That the reason that community groups are meeting different days, the reason your leader knows what to do right now is because of Joseph.
Yeah.
The reason they have questions to go over, the reason they understand the verses that they're talking about is all because of Joseph and what he's done in this season. And that's because of the value that Joseph has, is he really wants to create community for people. Yeah. Of like, if you've ever hung out with Joseph, you know that like he wants you to have like a good experience when you're talking with him. He wants to make sure you feel heard. He wants to know how you're feeling. He wants to know like what's going on in your life. And he wants other people to experience that. And he wants other people to lead that. So he wants to like equip leaders to be able to have those moments. So he's affecting people's relationships and environments when he's not even there, which is so cool, because that's like his passion for that. And I would love to hear just like, where does that passion come from?
Well, it's funny because I feel like I started nodding along for a second and I stopped because like, I feel like I just can't nod along with all of this praise I'm getting right now. I can't just be like, yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, totally right. I'm the best.
Spot on.
Yeah.
You crushed that. Couldn't agree more. But I'd agree. I don't think it's all me. I think all me maybe might be a bit excessive, but a bit of an exaggeration. But I would say we've all played a role. I think the community we've set has been a big part. I think it is something that I would say I'm naturally gifted into. I think something that I do enjoy. Well, I enjoy like authenticity a lot. And so I think in groups that's like so needed. And I think a big part of it too is I grew up in church and like desiring that community so much. But for me, my background, like education, like I've got a degree in theology. So it's like very heady, freaking Greek, like all this like.
We get it. You're way smarter than us.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah.
All this.
We
Okay,
get it. We get it.
As I'm like, all right, moving on. And but then it's so funny. Now I'm like, my master's degree. No,
Okay.
So that was just my bachelor's.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Okay.
But my
master's
concentration is in Christian counseling. And so going from this super heady theological background to this Christian counseling really impacted me a lot. And so having that knowledge of like people need to be able to process what's going on in their life. And a lot of times just spitting facts and truth at them with no heart and no connection and no relationship isn't going to get someone anywhere. And so I think for me, a huge growth factor was being able to have community, to have people that you can process what's actually happening in your life with. And that radically transformed my walk with Christ, my relationships with others, how I listen to people, how I love them, what it actually meant to be invested in other people.
Yeah.
And then that was like, I was like, oh, this is 85% of the ministry I do now is really like from a Christian counseling perspective. And I'm like, man, this is how you like deeply love people.
Yeah.
And then I want to be able to replicate that as much as I can in the leaders, in the curriculum, in the community groups, because we want, especially students right now. I mean, I think teenagers especially, emotions run high, especially like through this past year. And so I think having a space where they can be honest about those emotions, they can talk to leaders, and leaders know how to listen and giving them the ability to go, hey, you can go as deep as you want in the scripture, but I'd rather have students talking, opening up, and actually talking about what's going on in their lives and being able to bring friends with them who also need that community. And so I think my passion, my heart, and my background is kind of in this area where I think emotions are important. I think being able to have a space and a place to process, to open up, to talk, to get real is insanely important and crucial for someone to actually grow and to know how much they're loved and to realize like, hey, I can actually talk about what's going on. I don't have to put this front up. I don't have to be fake about what's happening in my life. Like this is actually these are my struggles. These are my doubts. These are what I'm feeling right now. And being able to have a sense of community where we can do that. And I think that has begun. I think I would say right now, this is my favorite time in ministry ever, I would say. I don't know if I've told you guys. I don't know if I've actually said that to you guys. I tell everyone else that. But I would say just this past year and being able to do the things we're doing now like this, like being able to sit here and have these conversations and do this podcast and be able to invest in areas where I think God's all naturally equipped us and given us passions for, allows us to work together so well. And then also to build this friendship we have as well, I think feeds into that and they go back and forth. And so I've never been more passionate about ministry, about what we're doing, about the stuff we're creating, and what we're putting out there for students, and also the relationships that are being formed, because I think life change happens best in the context of relationships. I truly, deeply believe that. And so we've got this content backing up these relationships. And so it's this area where it's like, man, like love and truth and everything is like this perfect blend of all of it coming together right now. And we're really able to pour into these areas where we're passionate about, where we're gifted in. And I think that's what's created this culture and this climate for effective, powerful, passionate ministry to be happening. And so
yeah, for sure. And it's almost like the community that we three have like helps contribute to other people having community. It's like the idea I think of, we're recording this the day after I spoke, finishing Vibe Check, our series on friendship and stuff. And one of the things I thought about talking about is this idea of in the beginning of creation, the Trinity existed. So you have this idea of community existing. And then in creation, creating humanity, they want them to live in community. And then you have Jesus living life in community. And so it stems from like at every level, community is a value. It's not just something you're told to do. Like we aren't just saying like, hey, be open with people. Hey, make sure to spend time with people. Hey, be in community. It's just like we experience community and we want other people to experience that also.
Yeah. And the thing I love about, I think like our dynamic, but also want to look at like, when you look at successful sports teams, which is I feel like I always use like sports analogies, but when they like successful sports teams, you learn that this idea that like perfect community isn't perfect. Like you watch guys like argue on the floor, you watch like guys like bicker on the court, And it's like the immediate outside reaction is like, oh my gosh, they're falling apart. But it's like, no, they're growing closer.
Totally.
They're grinding out the issues of their dynamic and their work, and they're grinding out the like the disagreements or the missed cues or whatever they missed, because it's like we have to get better and we have to grow further. And I think that sometimes we have this idea, I think especially right now, with like, if there's a problem in our relationship, then our relationship isn't perfect. But I would argue the other end of like, if you have an argument with someone that you love, awesome. Like that you're showing a greater value in your relationship, because you're showing that, number one, I care enough about this and about us to like fight through this. And also like, we're getting better. We're growing closer. And I think that right now, I feel like in the past for me, even I've been like in a place where I have a disagreement with someone, or like something gets weird and I want to like go the other way. But I found that having the conversation and fighting through the weirdness, it's like we walk away better, walk away closer. And it's like, we would lie if we say we never disagreed and never like had conversations that were more heated than not, like that would not be true. But we've never walked away like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
We're still sitting here having a conversation. It's like, we walk away like, cool, we're better now.
Yeah,
like we're stronger than we were yesterday because we just had that conversation. And I think that we need more of those, but like in general, we need more conversations like that.
That open candor.
Yeah. We need to like fight for each other more.
Is it candor?
Candor?
Is that a
candor?
Yeah. Well, it's weird because I always read it. No one ever really says candor. I always read it, but it looks like
is
candor.
Is it written candor?
It's got an O in it.
Candor.
Yeah.
That feels like a character. Like the next villain of the Avengers.
Sorry.
But honestly, the openness that we have in that candor, I think, is a big part of being able to actually walk away feeling better after a heated disagreement with you guys usually than I do like before, because we're able to process that.
Is there truth to like I don't know if this is true or not, but this makes sense in my head. An analogy of like where the deepest like levels in the ocean are also where like the like craziest storms are?
I don't know.
I've never heard that.
Well, because like storms don't happen in shallow water.
Interesting.
They don't happen like
they
on
don't happen in the sky or something.
I thought storms in the sky. Tommy,
what
can
am
you
I
fact
thinking
check
of?
this?
Hurricanes?
We're talking about
hurricanes. I'm in California, dude. None of this matters to us. We just have earthquakes.
We're talking about Tommy.
Storms start.
Do storms start in deep water or shallow water or the sky?
Or in the sky.
Tommy.
He's getting to it.
Tommy's gonna look this up.
He's fact checking.
Dang, this is important. But you know what I mean. Whether it's tornado, hurricane, insert things there. But maybe we just
like earthquakes don't happen on the surface. They happen underground.
Yeah, that works too. I was mainly thinking of like you're only going to have surface level friendships. Basically, my idea is if you never have conflict with someone, you'll never have a deep relationship with them.
That's it. Yeah.
Like the best relationships are ones that you have disagreements with. What's the verdict, Tommy? Yep, Wikipedia.
Storms are created when a center of low pressure develops with a system of high pressure surrounding it. This combination of opposing forces can create winds and result in formation of a storm.
Okay, Tommy just read something from Wikipedia that
cleared up nothing. I don't think. I'm actually more confused now.
So let's just cut that part out. And thank you, Tommy.
Thanks,
So
Tom.
I think, but the biggest thing is that when I think of my closest friendships, they're the ones that I've had not the most conflict with, but they're not conflict free.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that is really difficult. I think especially as pastors, is we're helping people navigate conflict a lot. On top of us also having it, is I always encourage people to not give up on a relationship when you're about to experience the fruit from it.
Yeah.
That if we give up on relationships when a conflict comes, we're ultimately going to miss out on the fruit that's going to come on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, I was thinking about episode 1 when you guys had a little moment. Do you remember that?
That's like growing now.
Wait, can we define it?
It's a meme now.
Yeah. Can we define that moment when Joseph yelled at me? That moment, the growing moment where Joseph yelled at me.
Or when Jordan tried talking over me.
When Joseph yelled at me, dude. We actually cut it out. It's not even an episode 1. We cut it.
Oh, really?
No. We bleeped it.
Dang.
We bleeped what Joseph said, so we make Joseph look bad.
Dang. Look at that.
We give Jordan too much power is what's happening, honestly.
But what's so funny is after that moment, if you're listening to this and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, that moment, we talked about it. We talked about it numerous times after that. And that's so, you were not trying to be mean at all. You know what I mean? You weren't like, and you were just like, you were apologetic of like, if you came off like that. And that's like, just, I know that's something stupid, but it's something so small like that that I think just shows like the value of our community that we have of like having conflict. I know like, to be real, like me and Jordan, we've had conflicts about different things, just like disagreements on like, hey, this is the direction I think we should go. No, I think we should go this direction.
Yeah. We talked about this podcast in January and we're launching it in the fall because we have not been able to agree on what we're doing for it for 9 months.
And there's a global pandemic.
That's part of it too.
Which definitely.
But I feel like we talked so long about the goal, the value, the goal, the value, the place, the value. And then it's like, okay, we have a goal, the location. Okay,
it's not the right time.
It's not the right time. Yes, it is. No, it's not. And then it's like, but I'm happier about this than I would have been in January.
And and you said something, I remember one of the times we had a conversation and we, probably talked for 45 minutes on the phone and we went back and forth. And at the end of it, I'm like making sure like we're good, right? Like, and you were just like, I feel like, but you said something to the effect of like, I feel better about our relationship every time we have one of these conversations.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, that is the metric for a friendship, I feel like, is when you have conflict, not immediately in the moment, because you probably have like some adrenaline happening or you're like just like defensive, but like when you think back on those things, ultimately that comes back to your values of you're going to come out better after a conflict if you both want what's better for each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so if you have a really selfish friend and you have conflict, you're always going to feel bitterness because all they care about is themselves. But you almost see after conflict, if you feel yourself growing closer to them, it's because they actually value you.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't feel like that in that exact moment.
Yeah.
I think there's something so important about that. And that's what I think, back to the AD and LeBron thing. That's why I think when they have fights on the floor and like you see that, I remember, years ago with the Warriors, the moment when they ultimately lost the championship, to Cleveland at the time.
To the King.
The King, dude. I remember seeing like Steph like throw his mouthpiece and stuff. And it was a whole thing. But then you also see like moments where they disagree, but it's through that they come together and they come closer together.
Yeah. But you watch other teams, like there's a clip of the last year that the Rockets had Chris Paul, and there's a clip of James Harden and Chris Paul arguing on the sideline. And there's a moment where you're like, oh, this is not a healthy argument. Like they're fighting each other. Like they're yelling at each other. This is not like a beneficial argument. And I think that everything we're talking about, it has to be like, we have to understand that like relationships do not start there.
Right.
Like they don't like, you don't get a month in with someone. It's like, oh, cool, let's argue and we're gonna be friends after. It's like, you have to have enough trust in the other person to like be able to step back and say, okay, I know you care about me. Like I know it doesn't feel like it in this moment, but I know you care about me. I know that you want me to get better. But I know that you're listening to me too, but we just don't agree. And I feel like there's so many conversations that like we've had where it's like in the moment I feel like, oh my gosh, like you're not listening to me. But like you said, you step away and you let the adrenaline come down. It's like, okay, I have to filter everything back through. Okay, I know this person loves me. I know we care about each other. I know our team cares about each other. I know our friendships are important. And it's like even like with my wife, it's like I might react a certain way to something and I have to step away and be like, oh, I didn't need to do that. I didn't like get upset like that, or her vice versa. It's like, but even that, my wife and I, the person who knows me the best out of everyone in the world, we've been married for 5 years. We have a baby. We've been together for 7 years. Like she's the closest human being to me. And I cannot walk back 5 minutes after getting upset and be like, I'm sorry, I love you. Like it's not, there's no time frame. There's no rule on relationships of how much time it takes to come down from that moment. Like sometimes it might be an hour, sometimes it might be 10 minutes, sometimes it might be 2 hours, sometimes
it might be 2 days.
It might be a couple of days where it's like I need a moment to process what just happened. But I think that I'm the type of person, and I feel like people are like this too, where it's like I'm a fixer. I'm like a repair, like I want to fix it right away. And that was like my struggle with my relationship with Marina. For the first, I feel like 2 or 3 years of our relationship, it was like she's looking for a moment to like come down and I'm trying to fix the problem. And it's like, stop doing that. And it was like a straight up like glass shattering moment where it was like, for me, when I realized like, oh, I could walk away for an hour and not fix this, but it's the fear of loss, right? It's driven by the fear of, if I don't fix this right now, I'm going to lose you. But it's like, that's where the trust comes in. Like, I have to know, like, if Joseph and I argue about something or we don't disagree, we agree, we don't agree, and I walk away, I don't have to come back to fix it, to like repair. Like time will do that, because I know Joseph cares about me enough, or you care about me enough, or Marina, or whoever it is, cares about me enough that you're not going to abandon me in that moment just because we disagreed.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think some people don't have that, like, don't have that security in relationships with friends. I don't have that security to say, I need a minute. I'm going to walk away, and I know you're going to be there when I walk back.
Right. And I should say, when we're talking about conflict and stuff, I'm hoping you're not thinking, oh, I argue with this person a lot. They're probably my best friend.
Yeah.
That's also not what we're saying.
Right.
Like that shouldn't be the measure of just
the fruit of a good relationship is fighting.
Yeah. Who yells at me the most? Oh, that's my best friend.
I guess we're close.
Jordan said
That's
they're my best
good.
friend.
Yeah.
Or I should marry them, But I think but what we're saying though is if you are arguing more than you agree, there might be a problem. There might be a problem there. But what we're saying is if you never argue, you might not have the relationship you think you do.
Yeah.
I think that's like what we're coming back to. So I want to make sure we clarify that.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. I do think with what Jordan said too, there's a whole, there's a lot to that actually, where there is this area where you do get elevated and you fight and you get angry and yell at each other. But I think it's when you come to that place of security that you're talking about, where it's like, hey, I know you care about me. I know hey, I know I matter to you. Like I'm important to you, dude. And same, and vice versa. It's when you meet in that place where that connection happens, where you can be able to have those honest discussions.
Yeah.
When you come back to like the security and the foundation of like, do I care about you? You care about me. And you're able to like meet in that place.
Yeah.
Is where that relationship deepens to like to an extreme degree. And so I think having that security is like completely crucial.
And I think security is built by time, but I think also like chemistry. Like there are some relationships where it's just like, boom, like we're tight, like right off the bat, I can think of coming to One and All and like just Cody and Rachel. People don't know Cody and Rachel maybe, but it's like I met Cody and it was like within a couple of days, like, oh, like we get along very well and we could be friends, you know? And if people like coming to new church, it's like coming in the team, it's like within a couple of weeks, it's like, oh, like this is a fit. Like there's a feeling out season, but that was very short because it fits well. And I think that but don't confuse time and chemistry. Like don't confuse like, oh, we're so close because, like we're getting along very well, very quickly.
And
like
this person for 2 days.
Sometimes you have to like compare the two together.
It's like summer camp.
Summer camp love.
I love this person. I'm gonna marry them. We've known for 2.5 days.
Well, you went to summer camp when you were like,
I did.
Did you ever go
to summer camp?
Yeah. When you were a student? Mm-hmm. Did you fall in love?
I did not.
My best friend Chris did. Every year he had a new
every year, twice at summer camp.
Here's the story time. So where it got awkward was every year. I mean, he'll never listen to this. Like, let's talk about it. Here's his name. Here's his address. Yeah. But hit him up on Insta. But he actually every year. I mean, he's just like had a girlfriend every single year. But the awkward thing was the camp that we went to. The same churches went to it every single year.
Oh,
so it's the same churches, like a church from like Vegas, church from like San Diego, some from like San Bernardino area. And so but then he'd come back the next year and that girl would still be there and being like, wait, why do you have a new girlfriend now? And so he had all this drama every year at camp.
Dang.
It was really funny to watch.
The honeymoon phase.
He was that kid.
Well, yeah, but every
Camp's
year it was like, I know I do this every year, but this time it's different.
Yeah.
This time this person is my soulmate. It's that chemistry thing.
You see this guy's married now?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to start getting into his personal business, so I'm not going to do that. At this moment, he is not married.
I have a similar friend who, like in high school, was a different girl every year. And there was one girl this year, I think it was when like we were like freshman, sophomore year. So it wasn't like later, it was like earlier. And there was this girl and they started talking and it was like a thing. And then they talked for like a month and then it was gone, right? And then we graduate and then we're in college and like at our church together. And then just like naturally, just like, life took us apart. Don't really talk to him too much anymore. And then I got a friend request from him he followed me on Instagram recently because I don't think he had at the time. And then he was married. And I was like, who's he married to? To the girl from like sophomore year.
Dang.
They're married now. And
what a love story.
Dude, I was like,
don't tell that to people listening to this right now.
But
you just gave every student hope.
But
dude.
that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
And the point that I'm making
is
is
that they just refollowed that person.
Yeah, they just got him. The point I'm making is that like not every some relationships are the exception and some are the rule. And there are relationships that you might have where it's like very like what does Creed say in The Office when he's on the phone with like the two fake suppliers? It's like it's kismet. Is that what it is? I don't know. Anyways, there are relationships where it's like the dynamic is there immediately, but like you have to also be wise. Like sometimes take your time in those friendships to like develop that, because like I do think that being able to have conflict with someone in a healthy way is like a muscle that has to be like
Yeah, for sure.
trained
It's a
and
skill.
like worked out
Yeah.
and developed, and something that like for me, like I still am training and working out. I'm still like figuring out, how do I have conflict without getting hurt? How do I have conflict without hurting someone? How do I express, communicate what I'm going through, what I'm feeling, without being defensive or without coming off as defensive? And I think that's like, this takes time. And I think that at the end of the day, all these relationships, we're not all LeBron AD. We can't all click immediately. We can't all immediately walk on the floor and have chemistry. But if we take the time and we're wise with the relationship and we fight for each other and we're just honest when the time comes, I think that's when it's like those things happen so much quicker. Like the way your relationship grows, it grows so much faster in one hard conversation than it would in 2 months of good jokes. You know what I mean? Like it grows so much deeper in that time and so much quicker, where it's like, if you get to that point where you get to have it, be honest, be vulnerable. Don't be defensive if you can, but also like recognize that like this is another human being, another relationship, another person that you just have to fight for. Yeah. And that takes time though to develop that muscle, I think.
Right. And I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Joseph. I think that, something that's so important is I found this as I've matured, realizing that in conflict and community, I think I love that we're talking about conflict because it's such an important part of community. That idea of like, you might be giving up on community because of conflict when the best community is on the other side of conflict, And I think that part of that is you having the realization that, and I talked about this last night at the end of Vibe Check, of like, you might not be the best friend.
Yeah.
And I think we can become really fixated. The reason we can't find community is we become fixated on the ways that the people around us are not good friends. And maybe we don't talk about the ways that we might not be a great friend. And we don't have that moment. And I think that as I've gotten older, and I think that ties back to the AD and LeBron thing, because they came in knowing they needed to learn from each other. Like obviously LeBron is this like veteran, like in the GOAT conversation, but they still need to learn from each other, and they still need to be open to be corrected, and they might make mistakes and stuff like that. And I think that's the healthy thing. I don't want people to constantly think they're the problem and there's just something wrong with me. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that there are people who have just never had a moment to think through, like, what am I doing that's maybe hurting people? And that's maybe like causing conflict, and then I'm just giving up on people. Because that's someone you don't want to be, is like you just have conflict. You're causing conflict with a bunch of people, and they're like, let's fix this and we'll become really good friends. It's like, no, just stop being a jerk. Like stop being a jerk. You don't want conflict, but you also don't avoid it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Joseph. Like, I feel like you're a really introspective person.
Yeah, I feel like I wasn't always. And so I think it was I think it was actually through the counseling classes that I started realizing like, oh, dang, like I have a lot of issues. Like I got things I got to work through, like where before
we all do.
I would just sweep it under the rug and be like, nah, it's definitely someone else's issue. And I think a lot of it is I think you kind of touched on it a lot in your message this past week too. And when it's like, maybe you're the bad friend. And I was like, maybe you most likely are, like chances are there's probably a lot that you're responsible for that you're not taking responsibility for and you're not growing in that. And so I think a big part of it is we go off of these. I do think a big part of it is you actually don't realize how important you are to other people, and it drives you to think that actually. And so in counseling, there's something called the arrow down technique, where you just go, it's like an if-then statement, where you're like, all right, if they were being mean to you, what does that mean about you? And you get to this point where they're like, oh, it must mean that like they don't care about me. You're like, okay, cool. Do you think that's true? And they're like, oh, well, no, I don't. And they start realizing that a lot of what they're putting on other people is actually their own perception of their feelings. They're not realizing what's actually happening inside of them. They're not like realizing, they call it like the hot thought. They're not realizing the thought they're thinking about themselves, or realizing the feeling that they're having about themselves, and then they're projecting that on other people. And so I think when we get to realize like, oh, this is how I'm feeling. Like this is my thing. This isn't their thing. And I'm putting it on them without them even realizing I'm doing that. And so when you get to the point where you're like, all right, if they are treating me like this, how's it making me feel? Like what's happening inside of me? And then like looking at it, like the facts of it, and being like, oh no, this person actually does care about me. Like this person actually do matter to this person. And then you start to realize like, oh, there's so much I can do about this. There's so much more I can grow in this area. And so I think people, just have a hard time being honest with what's happening inside of them.
Well, that's the easiest thing in the world. And I mean, we talked about this in cancel culture, is I think it's so much easier to point out what's wrong in the world than to clean up your own room. And I think that it's so much easier to talk about what other people do wrong than to look in the mirror. That's what I said last night. It's like we spend our whole lives looking out the window. And it's like last night I encouraged, like, we want to look in the mirror tonight.
Yeah.
That's really difficult.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked in the mirror for a long time? It's awkward, dude.
It is.
It's weird.
But recognition is such a like powerful tool when it comes to like healing. Like being able to recognize what you're saying. Like I went to see a counselor for a year, like last year. And there were so many things that like you're saying I brought up to him. That's like this person. And he's like, wait, but you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, not me. Mm-hmm. Never. I don't do anything wrong ever. It's like, but you. And it was like being able to recognize that it just changed my life. Being able to like, it even allowed me to give myself grace to be like, oh, I'm not perfect. Like, I'm not going to be. And we all know that, but it's like in reality, I get to a point where it's like, I think I have to be, and I think I have to like handle every conflict perfectly, or handle every relationship perfectly. Or I have to like, please every person in the area that like our relationship touches or whatever. And it's like, I learned in that season of like seeing a counselor every week. I literally went every Monday for a year. It was the best day ever. I would go see counselor Monday, and then we would go to Disneyland right after. Me and Marina. It's the greatest, like
the best ever,
like contrast of like I'm crying in the morning and I'm on Space Mountain in the evening.
I'm high-fiving Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like, dude, it allowed me to I think the most valuable thing was it allowed me to give myself grace and to walk away from certain relationships in my life that I was like, oh, I might be the problem, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm just picturing you crying, eating a corn dog at Disneyland.
Yeah, that's big old turkey leg.
Like processing, like what you talked
like
about.
childhood trauma, and all
there's kids like laughing and screaming next to you
with like the plush Mickey glove on. I'm just like what happened?
That's all I picture.
I do think that there is a point where once you've been introspective, you've seen what you can handle. Like other people aren't perfect too, so there are points where you have to be like, I do need to set healthy boundaries. Like this isn't good for me, and this is what they are doing, and this is on them, and that's something that they need to get to a point where they're like, they need to be able to realize that for themselves too. Yeah. And I think for a while I got so introspective that I was like, everything's my fault. Like this is like all I need to grow in all these areas. And I was like, no, this guy's just a jerk. Yeah. Like this isn't on me.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. Okay. My bad, Joseph.
It's a counseling session right now.
Yeah. You mean.
So I do think it's good to grow, but then also still like you still need to have a reality check of what it is for both people, both parties of it. So.
I think it's boundaries. Yeah. Like you have to learn like how to set healthy boundaries. Because people who like draw a line too quickly and those who draw like too late. But I don't know. I can't give you any insight on how to draw it at the perfect time. I don't know if anybody can.
Yeah.
But
I'd love to meet that person.
Necessary.
That knows how to do it.
But the whole point is getting the right people around you to be able to have those conversations with. And I think that when you get the right people around you, they do a few things. Like number one, like they give you a place to be real, to be honest. And then number two, I think they elevate the good in you and they suppress the bad in you. I think we talk about this idea. I think when week one, a vibe check of like, if your friends are not confronting your weakness, they're not your friends. If they're supporting your weakness, like if it's like, hey, I have a problem with this, or I have a problem with, drugs or alcohol, or I have a addiction to pornography or whatever, and your friends are not helping you confront that, and they're just like letting it go, then it's like, okay, like not every friend's gonna do that, but your close friends should be helping you fight that. And I think that they confront the weaknesses, but they also like elevate the good things in you. Like how do your friends encourage your gifting and the things that you're good at? Are they someone who's like, you want to go whatever, you want to be a YouTuber, and your friends are like, dude, you have things to say, you should do it, or they're like, that's dumb, why would you do that? And there's a balance of like the people around you, right? Like the scripture says, like there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors, like the people around you who can speak into like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be a YouTuber. Like, but it's like, it's all the delivery. But I just think that getting the right people in the room, they take you to the figurative championship. They take you to the win, because you could be the most talented, gifted, best person in the room, but if you have the wrong people around you, you're not going anywhere. You got to get the right people around you.
And I think something you said too, I think it's important that in those situations where you need somebody to not like, would you say celebrate their weakness, or like, they won't confront your weakness, or the thing that you also have to be willing to let people help you in that area.
Yeah.
I think that's
teachable.
The key.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the amount of times I've like, told my wife just like, oh man, I really need to cut out sugar. I'm trying to be really good on keto and stuff like that. And then she sees me like eating a cookie or something, and she's like, in the most gentle way, like, oh, you're eating a cookie? And I'm like, shut up. Like, I can't, and I'm like, don't tell me what to eat. Like, like That's a made up scenario, but also not at all. And
can I give you a real scenario of that in my life?
Yes.
Last night we're driving home from church and it's like late, and your wife was picking up McDonald's for my wife.
Of course she was.
And I.
Yep.
And I asked Marina, I was like, do I want a soda? And in my brain, I'm like, yes, I want a soda. Say yes. And she's like, no. And I'm like, for whatever, fine, whatever, fine. And she's like, then don't ask me next time.
Right.
But you don't allow, like, I asked her for it, but I didn't give her the space to like actually say it.
Yeah. And just pull out for a second. Pretend like we're not talking about your life and what you're going through. Like, imagine you're just thinking about me in that cookie situation of like, how funny that is that like I'm expecting people around me to love me and help me. But the second they do, I shut them down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I have to at some point take responsibility for some of that. And thankfully, like my wife is graceful and she is like more loving than I am. And so she's able to have those conversations with me. And I think that's like such an important aspect that we keep talking about. I think there's something important about like what role are you playing in this?
Yeah.
Like that there's an important thing about each of us have our part to play in this part of community. Part of it is loving other people, but it's also allowing people to love us. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like in that community, it needs to go both ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think allowing them to speak in your life is going to, at one point, impact them, and they're going to allow you to speak into their life as well. I think that's going to grow them. And I do think how you do it's really important. I think that's something you're a master of, Sean. I think you're really, really good at having hard conversations in a way where they walk away going, oh yeah, I feel better now. Like that was great. And so I think you're really good at like the nuances of it and coming at them with like I've seen people in a meeting like get super like they throw out like these ideas and get super frustrated. And I'm like, I'm getting worked up. And I look over at you and you're like, And I'm like, how is Sean taking this so well right now?
True, dude.
Sean's like, yeah, and I think like super like your voice comes down and you like meet them where they're like you kind of like bring them down too. And I'm like, dang, I would not have done that. I could not have handled that situation like that.
Same.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that you're good at. I think a big thing that you do a lot as well, I think is just a general tip for advice is if you turn advice into a question, it becomes a lot easier for someone to receive that because they feel like they're discovering for themselves. So if like I had a buddy come to me like literally he's like, I want to like grow in like my like walk with God. I was like, oh, cool. Like, read your Bible 5 minutes a day. Like, I just told him that. Like, I was like, pray 5 minutes a day. He was like, oh. But then if I was like, hey, what do you think about like praying 5 minutes a day? He goes, oh, dude, that's actually like, I could do that. And I feel like he discovered it for himself. And so, or if they say like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. You then know if you told them that, it would have been lost on them. Yeah. And then you can kind of like, oh, well, why not? And you can kind of like dig that out a little bit. But flipping into a question helps them actually discover for themselves and then doesn't elevate them, doesn't escalate them. Yeah. And that's a huge, honestly, it's a game changer for me. Whenever I have to have hard conversations, I just ask a ton of questions.
Dude, it's good. You did it to me one time.
Yeah. Like, and Jordan's like, why is this so many?
I'm like, why does Sean ask me questions all the time? But no, actually the other day I was thinking about this one time we were talking and I made a comment and I was like, I get so frustrated when people don't do what they say they're going to do. We were eating lunch. I remember it so vividly. And Sean was like, yeah, same. But how do you feel when you do that? and it was like, and I was like, oh crap.
We're not talking about me.
I'm like, no, wrong. No, we're talking about this person, not me. Go back to this person. But that's, it's so valuable that like, again, we have the relationship to do that. Right. We have the candor to do that. Mm-hmm. We have the time that we can like, and it's chemistry and it's time. And when those two are combined, there's no limit to your relationship and where it could go.
Yeah, totally. And so, no, this is great stuff. I'm looking at the time. We could talk about this forever. Yeah. I just want to end it by saying you guys are awesome.
Congrats to the Lakers.
Congrats to the Lakers.
We did, this was not on purpose, the purple. At the start of the episode, I was like, there's purple on the screen. It wasn't on purpose.
Dang. Everyone listening is going to have to go find it on YouTube now.
Yeah, seriously. Dang. We just alienated all the Apple Podcast listeners.
But come join us on YouTube.
Yeah, we love you. But they don't want to listen to the ads, you know?
The ads?
The ads. There's always ads on YouTube.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't know there were ads on our account.
Well, no, they don't. Is
it just every account
on everything?
It's just on every video.
Yeah, anyways, this has been a great conversation. But yeah, you guys are awesome, and I think honestly, this kind of sparked 2 episode ideas, and let us know which one you want us to talk about first. But I think we should do a full episode about resolving conflict. Like that'd be really cool to have an episode talking about like tangible ways that we can have those, like we kind of touched on that a little bit. Yeah. I think that'd be really cool to expand on that, but also I would love to spend more time. We talked about a little bit about community because that's something that you have done like in our ministry. And then also like in our relationship, But I would love to have an episode even talking about like ripping back the curtain and talking about what we do.
Yeah.
And like what changes we've made during COVID, what changes we see like for the future and stuff.
That'd be cool.
Just kind of give you like an insider look. So let us know which one you want to hear first. But thank you guys for being open about some real topics.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Love you.